should go in prayer. So the three go in prayer. Deacon Feel So Good actually has a problem, and so he tried to do good. He missed a week. The next week, he's back out drunk again. What's the Bible say we do now?
Go to the deacon.
To the church.
We take it to the church. In our case, it would be the conference. We would come to our family meeting, and it would be brought up in the family meeting. Then, as a church, let's kind of play this out. How would that look in a family meeting?
I think it would have to be.
Is everybody going to take a turn, point a finger at Deacon Feel So Good?
It's going to be like everyone's going to pray for him.
Everybody's going to pray for him. Okay. Well, what else?
And give him like encouraging words to keep him going.
Okay, so now we're going to have a 3-hour meeting. Because everybody got to say something. Everybody has to say something encouraging to him.
Not everybody, but like the people that you know in the close that's in the church that is closest to him, you would have to help him.
Okay. That's a good thought. Anybody else have an idea how that would look in the family meeting?
Well, I think that even in the family meeting, to preserve, the spirituality. So in the group, I think we should approach it like that when they finna stone that woman in adultery.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I think that some way. I mean, you ain't got to condemn everybody there in the meeting for what Deacon Feelgood doing, but just let them know as you have. It should be prayer first of all within that group to get some guidance as to how to approach it and what to do about it as a group there. But you remember when they were finna bust that woman's head open, they said, well, all right, any of you don't have no sin?
Right.
Hit her. So you should, I don't mean you got to say that, but approach it with that attitude, so to speak, as you talk.
Okay.
With
that's good. What this would look like in the family meeting is by the time it gets to the family meeting, it's to a point that Deacon Feel So Good is going to be given an option. All right. The family meeting is not for everybody or for the church body to give their opinion or their advice. They should give support, but at the point of the family meeting, it becomes almost a legal issue. Mm-hmm. And so it's a point to let Deacon Feel So Good know that if he continues in the behavior that caused him to be at the family meeting, that separation is going to come.
Okay.
And separation is going to come by the entire church. Mm-hmm. So that's what happens at the family meeting. So it's an issue to let the church know what's going on, and then the church members will know that if Deacon Feel So Good go out and get drunk again, that then they're to follow this part. And so this is where the instruction that Paul has given us comes into play. Mm-hmm. When you have followed the guidelines that the Bible have said, at the point of that family meeting, or when it's brought before the church, if the person then does not correct it or is not going to hear it, all right, then at that point the church separates. Now, go ahead, sir.
Pastor, I've seen it, I think, when I was younger at HHMBC. Okay. It wasn't historic then, it was Hosanna. When, say, a young lady got impregnated.
Right.
Well, she had to come back to the family meeting or conference, they was calling it then, and apologize or whatever to the congregation for what she had done. Right. But that kind of faded out over the years. I haven't seen anything like that in the last 40 years. But that was one way my parents and the one before them used to handle situations.
It ought to come back.
Just when something happened, you had to come back in front of that congregation and confess to them, but you've got the attitude now that only thing I just confess to God. I won't have to go and confess.
But that's not what the Bible says.
I know, I realize that, but that's. I haven't seen anything like that lately. Maybe it's still going on in some churches. I've not heard of it.
Go ahead, sir.
I was saying mixing the gospel with the law. You know, we say about stoning and about young people having sex and marrying, all that kind of stuff. You know. I lost the thought there.
Well, I have to go with what the word says.
Right.
All right.
Right.
If you catch me doing in sin, you need to come and talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We need to hold one another accountable. All right. Let's read. Let's go ahead just so we can clear this part up for the separation. So I want to get through the rest. Read verse number 9 for me, please.
9.
I'm sorry, 14.
Oh.
Verse 14.
If anyone does not obey our instructions in this letter, take special note of him. Do not associate with him, in order that he may feel ashamed.
Okay. Paul comes back. He says it for the second time. He says, if they're not following leadership, if they're not doing what we instructed them to do, he says, take note of them. In other words, observe them, watch them. He says, separate from them. Now, why did we separate? Because he said, read it again. Because he's going to tell us in that sentence, he tells us why would it separate.
So he would feel ashamed.
Okay. Yeah, so he would feel ashamed.
There's nothing wrong with causing your Christian brother or sister to be ashamed of their sin. Unfortunately, today, we don't want to do that. So as Deacon Nipper said, we allow them, I just confess it before the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
The shame part, when you have to come before the church and apologize for it, they didn't say, it says, don't treat them like an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
King James, all right? Don't treat them as an enemy where you cast them out. It doesn't say you excommunicated them from the church. It says you stop associating with them so that they feel ashamed. They act together and realize that what they did not only affected them, but it affected the entire body because we're family. When that shame comes on, that shame causes them to do right. Supposedly. It should. All right? If they're sincere enough, it will cause them to do right. So, while the young lady who got pregnant outside of wedlock had to come and ask the church for forgiveness, the church forgave, and then you continued on. Now, the fact that she had to come before the congregation and ask for that forgiveness, the other young ladies, when they start to think about doing what got them pregnant, they start to, I don't have to go up in front of Reverend Moffitt. I don't have to go up in front of Deacon Nipper. I don't have to go in front of Mother So-and-so and apologize. So it serves as a deterrent. But if all I have to do, and we got to say, we have that issue right now. All right? If all I have to do is ask God to forgive me, what deters the next woman or young lady from going and getting pregnant? Well, nothing happened to her. So, if nothing happened to her, what that says? Can't nothing happen to me. All right? If I have 3 or 4 children in the house, and there's a specific food that I tell them, or specific thing I tell them not to do, don't play in the living room. All right? So the oldest goes and plays in the living room, gets caught, and nothing happens. What does that tell the rest of them?
Play in the living room.
Because,
It's okay to play in the living room.
yeah, because unless parents are unfair, the other 2 that go in and play in the living room, if they get beat for it, then we got a problem in equity.
That's right.
Enforce it, stay on it.
Right. So that's what happens. Paul understood that, but the church wants to get away from this. And then it didn't say separate and excommunicate. He says separate so that they can start to think about what they're doing. And then if they come to Deacon Nipper Deacon Dipper, no. I can't. There comes Sister Doris. Everybody is stepping back.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to be looking for somebody to take them in and say, oh, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right? But he says that everyone, and that's why it comes before the church. Just think if only the 3 that went the last time know about it, then everybody else is wondering what's going on. That's why it comes before the church. So the entire church knows what's happening. So then the church as a whole operates to help to restore. That's the equivalent, Deacon Nipper, to going out and getting the 1 and leaving the 99. That's the equivalent to it. All right? With the understanding that we have the attitude that we all have sinned.
Mm-hmm.
And at any point in time, I mean, realistically, if you it's in a church like HHMBC, everybody would have a point at some point in their life that they were separated from. Everybody would have a separation story. Because we all, I mean, it's life, it's reality. At some point, all of us have gotten rebellious. During that time frame, we would understand what alienation is like. Alienation it works. It'll work on your job. If they had a dress code that an unofficial dress code, and you say, I'm not wearing whatever it is, black pants and a white shirt, I'm just not wearing, I can't stand black and white. So you refuse to wear it. Everybody else is wearing black and white. So then those that are wearing black and white say, you know what? If she don't want to wear black and white, who are you talking to?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, because nobody talk with you, nobody eat with you, nobody, they disassociate, eventually you're going to find yourself going in wearing some black and white. All right? Again, Paul was intelligent. All right? It works, but we don't want to do it in the church because it's painful. And we don't want it to happen, subconsciously, we don't want it to happen to us because we know eventually I'm going to mess up. So I don't want that happening to me, so I ain't going to do it to nobody else. All right? So he talks about the separation. Read verse 7, please.
For you, brother, For you yourselves know how you ought to follow our example.
Okay, wait a minute. He says, listen to what Paul says now. Listen to how he's talking. He's already said in the prayer, he said, pray for him. He said, I'm confident that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now, the second main point of this chapter, first point being separation, the second point being imitation, he says, I know that you know how to imitate me. I know you know how to do what I showed you to do. Is that what he's saying? Mm-hmm. Okay, read. Go ahead and read.
For we were not idle when we were with you, nor did we eat anyone's food without paying for it.
Okay, so Paul's saying, we didn't come and do nothing. When I was there, I showed you I was an example. It says, as a leader, I led by example. Go ahead.
On the contrary, we worked night and day, laboring and toiling so that we would not be a burden to any of you.
Okay, so he's saying, I worked, I took care of myself so that I wouldn't be a burden to you. Go ahead.
We did this not because we do not have the right to such help, but in order to make ourselves a model for you to follow. For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. If a man will not work, he shall not eat.
Okay, wait a minute. If a man does not work, he should not eat. What does that mean to you?
That means get a job and keep it.
I said, get a job and keep it. Okay, then I got a question. I wrote it up here. He talks about imitating the leadership. So when he says imitate me, the way that affects us today is you're supposed to follow your leadership as your leadership follows Christ. Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. So the practical application of that in the 21st century is Follow your leader as your leader follow Christ. If your leader stops to follow Christ, then you stop following